Today's 100?
Yeah.
So we're going to do something special for 100.
Well, I have a special episode for the 100th. It's sort of like if these old walls could talk.
Oh, okay.
A look back.
That's what we're doing right now?
Oh, no. We're talking about temptation.
But this is the 100th episode.
Yeah, but the 100th, we're going to have a celebration of the 100th episode because otherwise we would never get to your message. Because there are lots of interesting things to cover over the 100 episows. Believe me, I've been going back. So there's going to be
like a bonus episode
to
celebrate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. How about that?
100 episodes.
Yeah.
Wow.
Can you believe it? That's like 2 years. It's like 2 years of
this
tomfoolery.
Yeah.
Of planning. It's just like grinding away and meeting and writing and
all the prep work that goes into this.
Yeah, I was talking to my trainer this morning and he's like, wow, 100 episodes. He's like, probably a lot. I was like, that's like 100 hours.
Yeah.
And he goes, oh, probably a lot more behind the scenes than 100 hours. I was like, no. Nothing behind the scenes. Zero.
No, everyone knows you don't edit.
I do edits.
Whatever is said goes in.
Not always. You know what's funny is I was listening back to a lot of the episodes in preparation of
our bonus
episode. I was like, that was an edit. That was stitched together. Mm-hmm. Most certainly, because as you're listening, you're recalling the story, and then you remember the story that you were telling,
mm-hmm.
and then all of a sudden it cuts to something else,
mm-hmm.
like the end of it, and you're like, oh, yeah, that's right. Took a big portion of that out
mm-hmm.
to protect the innocent.
Mm-hmm. 100.
Your hair looks, if I may say so, very handsome today.
Well, thank you.
Yes.
It's quite a compliment coming from you.
I give you a lot of compliments.
No, I meant because you have such lovely hair.
I don't. Wow. The difference in our color. Check this out. Look at you. Look at me. Is this like real life? You look normal, and I look like an Oompa Loompa. What color is an Oompa Loompa?
Orange.
I look like DJT on this feed.
Yeah. Well, it's because you have a huge bright light on me and nothing on
No,
you.
because when I do that, it just exacerbates it.
Mm-hmm.
It enhances it. So,
Aaron, how's life?
Yeah, great.
Tell us something. What's the latest?
See, it's like when you do that, that's when people are like, oh, okay, well, this is part of the script where Justin asks Aaron how his life is. And Aaron shares some. I'll tell you how my life is.
Okay.
It's pretty good. Pretty good. Took a quick trip to Nashville this past weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And was supposed to take Cameron with me because he was sort of complaining that the girls get to go see their favorite concerts all the time, and he's never been to one. So I saw that one of his favorite groups, the Avett Brothers, was playing just outside of Nashville.
That is one of Cam's favorite groups?
The Avett Brothers? Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Just don't hear a lot of kids like them.
Well, he's one of a kind.
Yeah.
He has pretty mature musical tastes.
Yeah.
Yeah, he really does. But, so I made all the accommodations and booked the flights, booked the hotel, obviously bought the tickets. And we were going to meet up with Logan and go see the show. And then on Wednesday of last week, he's like, you know what, Dad? I don't think I can miss my football game on Saturday. So he pulled the plug on that. I'm like, you know what? Okay. I get it. That's a good reason, So I texted Kayla at school and I said, you want to go to Nashville? And she's like, yes, please. So I canceled his flight, booked her flight. And then I picked her up from school. She's like, oh, Friday? I've got plans with my friends. So then she pulled the plug. So then I texted Logan. I was like, you got a buddy who wants to go see a concert? So that's what we did. I met his buddy Graham, who...
When was the concert?
Friday night.
I was going to say, you were here this weekend.
Yeah. You didn't even know I was gone.
No.
That's how quick I am. Efficient.
The life of a world traveler here.
Yeah, so we went, took Logan's buddy, Graham to the took him out to dinner, went to the concert, and Graham is about as Logan-like as a kid can be. I mean...
Peas in a pod, huh?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. They both work harder than any of their roommates. They both are the only ones who clean their apartments. They're, pretty musically inclined. It was actually a lot of fun because just listening to the two of them go back and forth about some different music stuff. This kid's a guitar major. So it was awesome. Yeah. That was it. Flew back Saturday. That was it. How about you? You know what's interesting?
What?
So I have been listening to a lot of the episodes, and it's just so funny, man. Like so much has changed in 2 years.
Yeah.
So much has changed. Did you coach this weekend?
Yeah.
You did. No spoiler alerts, but there is a part of one of the episodes where you're saying, I could never coach my kids. Is that wild?
It's reluctant. I do not look forward to coaching first grade flag football, and I hope I never get roped into that again. But, I mean, I feel for the other dads that are doing it because, like, it's not fun for any of us. So,
yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, we had sports games this weekend. Yeah, that's about it. Just living life.
Living the dream?
Yeah. My dad comes into town this afternoon and leaves.
He does?
He's driving across the country with his buddy. So
what are they going to do?
My stepmom's nephew lives in Reno and bought a F-550, brand new F-550 truck for work, but it was all the way across the country in Baltimore. And so he needed somebody to drive it across the country to him.
What?
And so rather than have one of his employees fly out there and be gone for like 4 days, 5 days, he called my dad. He was like, hey, you and my dad's best friend is Mr. Redevin, and he's like, I'll pay for your guys' hotel and food and all that, like in car, like you guys want to cross country and bring this truck to me?
Whoa!
And Dad and Mr. Redevin were like, yeah.
So who's his best friend?
Mr. Redevin. That's what Marty Redevin. That's his name. I don't call him Marty. I've known him since I was in kindergarten. He's Mr. Redevin.
Such respect.
Okay.
What does he call you?
Buzz.
Yeah.
I call him Mr. Red, but anyway, so they're coming in town this afternoon and staying the night and then driving on tomorrow. So
nice.
Yeah.
Do you think it's possible that I've had a hand in this already?
No. I could tell by your surprised face.
Yeah. You don't think that it's possible that he's coming in to record the bonus episode that you weren't invited to?
No, I don't think so.
Huh.
Yeah. Uh-huh. You wish you had planned that.
I wish I knew.
I know. Well, and
just him and me.
Coming up in what? Is it next week? We have Ryan on.
Yeah.
As we celebrate 8 years as a church, we'll have Ryan Hahn, our president for the last 8 years.
El Presidente
That's with
right.
us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
Mm-hmm. Other than that, yeah, life's good.
Do you feel like you're just busier than all get out right now?
Yeah, it's busy.
Doesn't it seem? Yeah. Can't quite put my finger on all that. I'm also very aware, just so you know, as I've gone back and listened to a number of these, how much you can hear us drinking.
You drink a lot.
You do too. Oh, where's your water?
I don't have one. See,
You usually just help yourself.
90% of the time, you don't even get me a
You
water.
helped yourself to the bathroom when you got here.
Well, am I not allowed to use the bathroom?
I
at
just
your
said you
house?
help yourself. So, like, why am I supposed to serve you? You
I'm
can't
a
help yourself
guest
to
in your
water?
home.
Pardon me?
I'm a guest in your home.
You know what? Here, we're like family.
Oh, okay. I can just grab out of the
You can
fridge.
grab whatever you want.
Okay.
Anything organic.
Are you guys still doing all that?
Oh man, it is a slow but very methodical march to getting rid of all the garbage. Yeah, rewiring. You know, my wife is she's very very eyes wide open to the trash, you know, that we've been consuming. More so like our kids. Like our kids have just horrible eating habits, man. And it's really hard to unwind. Extremely. Especially when you're busy. You know, like if you have like a tight 30 minutes, you know, before being in between things for them, and they're like, well, I'm starving. You know, like, okay,
Right.
fine, let's get the Chick-fil-A or whatever. But yeah. So the garbage is getting weeded out pretty quick. In fact, every day I look in the trash and there's some nearly full box of something that has been thrown away.
It is crazy when you look into that kind of stuff, and you understand why a lot of people kind of go ostrich with their head in the sand on it, you know. But it is crazy how much we eat chemicals more than food. You know, like what is happening in the processed food industry is just disturbing, really. Yeah.
Yeah, and just sort of the why, you know, I know it's cheaper to produce
Synthetic things, yeah.
Yeah. And it's really expensive to eat healthily.
Yes, it is.
And that's the challenge that I see. In particular, you know, did you watch the Monday night game last night?
No.
Okay. So you see what they advertise to the masses. It's like, okay, well, they got a huge audience, so we're going to advertise alcohol and fast food, Taco Bell and beer. And you know, I'm not a lunatic. You know, I know that sometimes it's okay to do that stuff, but I know a lot of people who that's it. And in fact, if you just drive by McDonald's in the morning and you see the drive-through line, you're like, those McGriddles are pretty delicious. But then you're going to go sit at your office for the next 4 hours and then go to lunch and probably do it again. I mean, it's pretty bad. And I grew up that way. I grew up eating, you know, my mom made all our dinners, but we ate a lot of garbage too. And that was probably about the time it flipped, you know, in the 70s. Can you believe that? The 70s?
Well, I mean, I think that goes into our topic of temptation. I think for you and I, we've talked about it before, but food, especially sweets, is a temptation. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've tried to quit something or stop drinking soda or try to stop doing, you know, like late night sugar snacks or, you know, or limit fast food or, you know, any of these type of things. And it's crazy how hard it is to get rid of those things. And I think especially for an active family, the big thing is the convenience, you know, to be able to grab something and it's there. And, you know, you don't have to cook it. You don't have to, you know, and the cost and a lot more of the healthy stuff like spoils quicker and, you know, like stuff like that, which is just creepy. Like, I forget what place it is. I think it's in Sweden or something like that, where they have the last Big Mac that was sold in the country or something like that, and like it's still preserved. It's still like you can see it. It doesn't have mold on it or something like that. I might not have all the details right, but look at it's
No
crazy,
way.
and you're just like, nothing healthy for me should be still good 7 years later.
Yeah.
You know, like that's not okay.
It's not.
So,
But it is delicious.
yeah.
Engineered to be. I think the thing that got me was when I found out that the cigarette companies bought the food companies.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So the cigarette companies pivoted and they bought the food manufacturers. And what we know about cigarette companies is that they make things addictive.
Right.
And also things that kill you.
And that they are not after your health.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
No, it's interesting. Like just little things like, Europeans, when they come over here, what's the one thing they say about American food? It's so sweet.
Oh, yeah.
There's sugar in everything.
Yeah.
And we know that sugar is addictive. And we also know that excessive amounts of sugar have been linked to cancer, and so it all spirals back around, and you see how all this goes, and yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. So back to your point about temptation, I can't quite figure out what it is about it why I'm so tempted to eat so poorly when I am 100% certain that I'm going to regret it, that I'm going to feel worse, that it might give me like that quick hit of dopamine or whatever real quick. And then I'm going to have like regret. This is going to sound maybe like lunacy to you, but if like I love pizza, if I go out and have, and I don't have limits. Like if you put a pizza in front of me, I will eat the pizza. I don't know why that is. I'm not hungry. Right. Like after a couple pieces, you're like, I'm good. No, I'll eat the whole thing. I will instantly feel like I look like I gained 20 pounds. So I know that's going to happen. In my head, I know that's how I'm going to feel. And yet that temptation is just so strong. You get the smell of it, the first couple of bites and everything. I don't know what it is about food in particular that I am just, it's that one thing for me that I just can't control it. Yeah. It's embarrassing to say. I'm ashamed to say that. That's why I can't have it around. Last night was a good example. And we had a bit of a stressful night around here. So what's the first thing that a stressed out person does? They look to what can
comfort.
Yeah, comfort, right? And thankfully, we had a couple things in the house. I'll give myself credit just for this one time. We had a couple things in the house that are still not good, like sweets, like small quantities of things. And I was like, okay, I'm not gonna do it. Just not gonna do it. But that's what I was looking for as I was going to bed.
Yeah.
Bad timing.
Yeah. But I don't think anyone's immune to temptation. And so that was what was so I made the joke on Sunday morning when I made it over to, so before we do church, we gather together to pray and all that kind of stuff. And I made the joke that I was still rewriting my sermon, and I was, because I woke up that morning, because I had that morning going into the sermon when I was getting ready, like most of my sermon was about the first part of the topic, which was God won't give you more than you can handle. And I had written a bunch about like kind of suffering and trials and, and all of that. And that was probably like 75% of the sermon. And then just 25% was like, here's the Bible verse it comes from. It's really talking about temptation, but that's not really what, why people say this phrase. And then I was like, you know what? Like, I shouldn't skip over temptation. Like I should really talk about that today. Yeah. So yeah, it's like 6 a.m. and I'm in the office and I'm like, I need to take out this 75% of this and I need to talk more about the temptation piece. Because then I realized like I can really get to the suffering piece in 2 weeks when I do Romans 8:28.
Mm-hmm.
God works all things for good. And so yeah, I'm sitting there and I'm working on adding more about this temptation piece. And yeah, it's just hitting me over and over again. Like, yeah, I shouldn't skip over this because there is not one person that doesn't have, and I've used this analogy before, but like, it's like a mouse with cheese. Like sin is cheese. Like we all have cheese that we want,
Mm-hmm.
but for each one of us, it's different flavoring, like you might be a Havarti person. I'm a cheddar person. That person's a Swiss, like, it doesn't matter what flavor of cheese. It's all cheese.
Mm-hmm.
And every week, it's not like there are very few people in life that come in and they've got traps connected to them and it's like one of every cheese, right? Like very few people like dabble into each and every sin. Usually it is 2 or 3 sins that like we get trapped in all the time. And it's
You've
like
referred to them in the past like as your pet sins.
right. It's like every week if we were that mouse with the mouse traps on us, like having to come in and be like, this is what got me again. It would be like 25 times for cheddar. Seriously? Yeah. Like 25 times. Like that's most people. Like we have our core temptations that Satan whispers in front of us and that we fall for every time. And what was interesting about the topic is you step back and you go, why do I fall for that? Why do I miss that? And when you boil it all down, it's an idolatry. There's an idolatry at the base of it. And an idolatry literally just means I love this more than I love God. Because that's the truth of sin, is if you didn't love it or crave it or want it, you wouldn't do it. It's deep down somewhere, you love it. And that's what you have to war against. Yeah. Is why do I love this? Because it leads me to unhappiness. It leads me, but in the moment, there's this feeling of like, that's going to bring me happiness and joy.
Yeah, we've talked about it before, being like a God-sized hole. A God-sized hole that we're trying to fill with all the things of this world. For some of us, it's food. For some, it's alcohol. For some, it's narcotics. For some, it's exercise. For some, it's relationships or pornography. All those things that we're trying. And again, like obviously, food is not bad. Okay,
correct.
But like putting like all your focus and priorities on anything and overdoing it is not good for you. Like trying to fill whatever. Last night, I'm like, okay, what am I going to throw at this? I guess it's going to be, well, it was grapes. So there you go. The strawberries and grapes. It was good
for you.
Yeah. But whatever it happens to be that I'm trying to like, you name it. And Brady and I touched on it. I want to say even last week that we talked about contentment,
right?
And like always pursuing, always chasing those things that we think that are going to make us happy. And the temptations of this world that we're trying to take and accumulate and amass to fill this God-sized hole in our lives. I don't know anybody who is immune to it. I don't know anybody who hasn't struggled with it. I feel like there have been plenty of things that I have been able to conquer,
right?
And that's just maturity in faith
and wisdom.
Yeah.
I think, looking at, I boiled it down to, I said, look, all sin can be put into one of 3 categories. And you see them in 1 John 2. They're either the desires of the heart, the desires of the eyes, or the pride of life. All sin can be found there because it's either there's some feeling or experience I'm chasing. There's some material thing or person or something that I'm seeing and I want, or there's something that I feel that I'm entitled to, the pride of life. Like I'm entitled to this, expect this. This is what I deserve, And all sin is birthed out of one of those 3, and an idol is created out of it, And so you take the feeling, like a lot of sexual sin is the feeling. It's, I want to feel this way. I want to experience this. I want to, I don't want one partner. I want a dozen partners. I want, I'm for, we're reading through the Old Testament right now as a staff and going through Proverbs right now. And it's just so interesting how much, they get into like adultery and, pushing away the women and pushing away, don't listen to them. And, they're going to entice you and the adulterer and all this kind of stuff. And you understand, like you look at Ecclesiastes, like I talked about on Sunday, like, King Solomon says, like, I want to experience everything the world has to see what under the sun is worth having. And he doesn't deny himself any sexual experience. I mean, the man had, hundreds of women that he had at his beck and call to do whatever he wanted. And like, even at the end of that, he was like, yeah, at the end, it just doesn't fulfill. It's not enough. Like, you're always wanting more, and it never satisfies, and so you look at all that and you can say, look, what are the surface level sins that I'm struggling with? What are the temptations that I keep falling for, right? Okay, let me trace that down to what is the idolatry in my heart? What is it that I love so much that I'm willing to choose to do these sins in order to have it? Go against God in order to have it. And then when you want to trace that down, okay, which one of these three things is it coming from? Is it coming from the pride of life? Is it coming from the desires of my eyes or the desires of my flesh? And now I know what I need to war against.
Yeah.
That I need to have my Bible verses ready. I need to have my accountability group ready. I need to have my wisdom ready to know, like, that's not going to satisfy. That's not going to be enough. That's not worth it. That I can't take with me. That, like, and you got to fight against these things. Because the sad reality is, there's a lot of people that aren't free, that live a life that is centered around these vices. And these vices begin to control your life. And it's sad. And, I talked about it at the end of the sermon. I said, it's so interesting when you watch someone who doesn't struggle with the vice that you do. You're just like, how could anybody not? Like, what is, like, and you see that freedom and go, wow, man, like, I wish I didn't, like the person that wakes up at 5 a.m. to work out for like 3 hours because they have to stay in shape and they have to, like, and they look at the person that wakes up and with their dad bod and just goes to work and doesn't care. And they're like, I wish I didn't have to feel like I had to be here to do this, like, and look, is working out a good thing? Sure it is. Absolutely. But when it becomes your life, when it becomes everything, like, you have to ask yourself, like, why? What is it that I think this gets me? What is it that I'm chasing after? What is it that I'm sacrificing everything else for?
Yeah. I had that moment last evening. I was watching the game last night, the end. And I'm not like a diehard Falcons fan.
You like Kirk Cousins?
I do. I like him a lot.
Yeah.
And gets to be a minute and a half left, and they're down, and he's got to make a fourth quarter drive to win the game again because he's like the best at that, actually. And I found myself like getting all amped up for it, and I thought, okay, I've been amped up all night. I don't need to be amped up right now. Like, how much do I really care about this, and why? You mentioned, you talked about your Saturday.
Yeah.
What I gathered from what you said, nice t-shirt, by the way. What I gathered from that is that this is a lesson that I can pull into a lot of other areas, which is I have to be very vigilant and very intentional in any given moment where I feel like my heart rate going up or my focus being off, perspective shifting of like, why am I getting amped up, or why do I want this, or why am I doing this? I have to be very intentional in that moment to be like, okay, hey,
Mm-hmm.
just a game. It's just candy.
Mm-hmm.
It's just whatever it happens to be, so that I can shift the perspective back to where it needs to be, shift my focus to back to where it needs to be. And like I said, that, there are a lot of things I've left behind
Mm-hmm.
in my life, but that wasn't like, that felt like a process,
Mm-hmm.
like almost like a journey versus, in the moment, I got to be really mindful of, okay, that's not good for me. That's not good for me. I can't do that.
Right.
You know?
And I think the biggest thing that that Bible verse is talking about, 1 Corinthians 10:13, it says, "No temptation is overtaking you that is not common to man." And the first point there is like, look, a lot of times we like to believe that our struggle is greater than anyone else's struggle. Like, well, you don't understand. I have these reasons, or I'm inclined to this, or I have an excuse, or it's tougher for me. You don't know what it's like. Like we try and build this up. Why? Because we're giving ourselves excuses to fail.
Yeah.
And first thing that Paul calls out is like, look, whatever you're being tempted by, it's common. You're not alone. A lot of people have this. And yours isn't more special than other people's. Yours isn't harder than other people's. You have the same challenges as everyone else. And he calls that out right now because, once again, we make excuses out of that. Well, mine's harder. Mine's tougher. Or you don't understand. Like, my wife doesn't support me in this. Or and he's like, look, everyone faces these temptations. And then he says, God is faithful and he will not let you be tempted beyond your ability. And that's huge.
Yeah.
He goes, look, yes, God is the one tempting you. God is the one who is allowing Satan to dangle that in front of you. Because everything that Satan does has to come through the blessing of God. Satan and God are up there, and Satan's going, I bet if I dangle this in front of them, they'll go for it. Because they love that more than they love you, God. And they know that's wrong. They know that's not good for them. They know that's not healthy for them. I bet I can dangle this in front. And God at times will say, no, I know them. They're too weak right now. Or no, they got too much going on in life. They're not going to fail that. Like they're not strong enough right now. And then there are times that God goes, okay, they are capable of resisting this. They are. I will be with them. I will make sure that nothing befalls them. Like you're capable of resisting it. And I think a lot of times, once again, we give ourselves excuses. Like, I didn't have a choice, or I'm a victim, or I was backed into a corner, or we come up with all these excuses. And God is going, look, not only are you capable of resisting this, I always make sure you have a way out. Mm-hmm. You are never trapped. You are never a victim. You are never isolated. Satan is dangling that in front of you, and I have always created a way for you to get out.
Yeah.
And so you're not helpless in this. You're not. It's not that you had no choice. It's not that all these excuses we tell ourselves, and that's a pretty powerful verse, 1 Corinthians 10:13, that God goes, stop making excuses. The only excuse is you love that thing more than you love me, and it's an idol for you. That's the only excuse.
Yeah. And how willing are we to get on our knees?
Yeah.
And rid ourselves of it. Those are hard conversations to have with God.
But you and I have been witness to people overcoming and working against some of the biggest addictions and challenges that you can see in life. And that's the beauty of God, is that there is nothing you cannot be free from. And people go, no, like you always have it with you. And that's not what we're talking about here. Is it always going to be a temptation for you? Yes, but temptation is not sin. Temptation is Satan dangling something in front of you that he knows is your weak point. Mm. But God goes, look, you can have victory over this. Yeah. You know, like some of the hardest ones are the eating disorders. I feel like, you know, when I'm sitting there with, you know, a young lady and you know, because you're dealing with some really strong, you know, core beliefs that are just so hard to break through. Yeah. And when you fight it at the surface level, it never works. Well, I'm fat. No, you're not. No, you're not. You have to love your body. You have to love you. Look at you in the mirror. Look at all the other girls. Stop looking at these pictures. Look at these pictures. You know, like, and I'm fat. If you fight it at the surface level, never works. Mm. You have to take it down a level. Why do you care what your body looks like?
Who are you comparing yourself to?
Well, you got to take it down to the core root. And the core root is they do have a certain way they want to look. Mm-hmm. Why? What attention from who do you want? Yeah. Well, it's not. It's just about me loving myself. Okay. Yeah. If you were on a deserted island, all by yourself, yeah, would you care that you looked like that? No.
What hole are you trying to fill? Is it what somebody else thinks of you?
Right.
Is it that?
You have that to get to what that is.
Unwinnable game.
Exactly. You have to get to the root of what it is. And the root, too many times we fight things at the surface level. Oh, you have an alcohol problem. Oh, it's because your marriage is in shambles. Well, let's, get your marriage. No. Like there's deeper things there that we have to get to. What's the deeper level? Yeah. And the deeper level is some way, shape, or form, there's an idolatry that is formed. That there is something that you love or want more than you want God.
Yeah. Or it, for a lot of people, it's like, what are you trying to avoid? What are you trying to escape?
For some people, they jump into shame and guilt and they're more pulling out of things. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, let's get to that. Like, let's talk about that. Let's talk about that forgiveness. Let's talk about what true restoration and redemption is. Let's talk about what true confession is. A lot of people don't realize, they're like, one of God's greatest tools of repentance is guilt. God gives you guilt. God will eat at your soul with guilt. Mm. And you're sitting there and you're going like, why does this person struggle so much? Why are they so down? Why are they so depressed? There's some situations where there is something that they have not told anyone. And they have not confessed. And God is eating at them to get their soul right with him. Mm. And so rather than deal with that, rather than confess that, rather than admit something they don't want to admit about themselves, and then you're starting to hear the idol come out. Well, what is that? Pride of life.
Pride.
Hey, I don't want to. I just want to sweep it away. Yeah. I want to act like it never happened. I don't want to deal with the fact that I am a person that was capable of this. Mm-hmm. I don't want to deal with the fact that I did that thing that I never thought I was capable of. And whatever it is, you have to get down to the root of things. And at the root of things is an idol. And that idol was created either out of the pride of life, the desires of the eyes, or the desires of the flesh. Mm-hmm. And you have to confess that. And so, the desires, like the eating disorder thing, like desires of the flesh, like that happens a lot. When I walk into the room, I want people to think this about me. Mm-hmm. I want this group of, and what's interesting about girls is a lot of times we think it's about boys. It's not. It's about other girls.
Yeah.
It's about other girls. When I walk into the room, I want these girls to think this about me. Yeah. I want them to look at me the way I look at them. And okay, so let's talk about jealousy. So let's talk about coveting. Let's talk about why you think you have to have that kind of body in order to be happy. Let's talk about self-worth. Let's talk about the idol that you have of you're chasing after this this desire of the flesh. I want to feel this way.
Well, and how about this? Let's going beyond that. Let's talk about the issues that all of those girls have. That group of people,
Right.
The issues they have.
You're idolizing that people. Yeah.
If you're feeling like you need to be accepted by that group of people, that's probably coming from the fact that maybe you haven't felt accepted by them, or you've been judged by them,
right.
or they've thrown comments at you. Okay, well, they've got their own stuff. Everybody has their own stuff. That is the trapping of trying to, caring too much about what other people think or their opinions, or like pursuing that acceptance, is that those are damaged people. Likely, if there have been issues and circumstances in the past,
and yeah, when you care a lot about what people think, that's a surface level thing. You have to go down to the bottom of that, because at the bottom of, if you're someone that always cares about what people think, why? It's because when you take that down a level, you want people to think about you a certain way. Mm-hmm. You want to be seen a certain way. You have a desire to be something that you currently don't think you are. Mm-hmm. And so you have to heal that. Because people are like, well, how do you start to not care what people think?
Yeah.
Well, I'll start saying, well, because then it turns into, well, that person's got issues, and that person's got issues, and that person's got issues. So why should I care about what that person thinks? No, you're still at the surface level. You have to go down. Why do I want to be seen that way?
Yeah.
What inside of me is saying that will make me happy if I feel like I am seen in that way? Whether it's I want to be seen as beautiful. Why do you want to be seen as beautiful? Why do you need that? What core thing is that going to? I want to be seen as popular. Why do you want to be seen as popular? Why do you want to be loved? Why do you think you need the friendship of all these people? Why do you think you need it? You have to get down to the cores. And when you get down to the cores, real help and real healing can happen. But also, it gets ugly. It gets ugly. Because you see the sin that has taken root. Mm-hmm. It's like, it's like lifting up a rock or like a rotted out, old house. You're gutting a house and you rip it up. And you see all the plumbing and all the. I mean, it's ugly down there. Yeah. But only then, because when you and it's rare, but when you find someone that's truly free, that is just like, the one thing I care about most in this world is what God says and what He does. Man, those people they are intoxicating.
Yeah.
You're like, wow, I want to live like that. I know you can name some in your head right now, off the top of your head. I can too, of people who are like, wow, I admire that. Right.
That's what I aspire to be. And getting there, like, it may not be easy, but there's such freedom in that. Yeah. There's a humility to it. Because at the root of it all comes humility. I don't have to have the desires of my heart. I don't have to have the desires of my eyes. I don't have to think highly of myself. Humility is all of those things. Mm-hmm. I don't need those things. I'm good. Do you think it's important for people to put themselves in those situations?
To do what?
To put themselves in, like, intentionally put yourself in a situation where you're going to experience that humility. Because I think a lot of times we build up our fortress of pride, and we do whatever we can to avoid situations and circumstances where we might
100%.
Do you think?
And you know who's the worst at this? Parents. Parents. Yeah. Parents protect their kids away from failing and build them in such a way. And we're getting none of that in like 3 weeks because I'm doing Train Up Your Child. And I've already started writing stuff because it just fries me the way that parents do this, where they coddle their children in ways that their children never experience any challenge, failure. They protect them. Oh, how dare the teacher say that she's not good at reading? And okay. Or maybe your child's not good at reading.
Mm.
Maybe this would be a good challenge for them. Instead of coddling kids away from everything. And that's why we have such a fragile culture today of people that can't handle criticism, that can't handle. I mean, you look at the political climate we're in right now, and it's on social media. You watch like one video and then you get 50 of them kind of thing. But, you can take some of these conservative guys that go onto college campuses and kind of just, have these open forums with these kids. And I watch these things.
Yeah.
And it just blows my mind. Just like how much some of these kids cannot handle an opposing view or a challenge to their own thoughts. And nobody does well with that. But like, I don't cry and scream and rip my clothes when, somebody says something different than what I believe. Yeah. I'm like, well, let me think about that. Well, let me come up with okay, well, hold on. What about this? Yeah. But like we coddle our children and we protect them from failure and we protect them from exposing any type of weakness or, like even silly things like, like the one I hate the most, and it's just because it is, but like, parents that are sitting there and they're like, oh, my kid's shy, because it's like, well, okay. Like right now, youth group, we have our big national youth gathering coming and, there's like, I forget what it is, like 65 kids that are, possible to go. And, and it's like, well, okay, start coming to youth group now and getting to know kids, oh, they're just shy. And they're standing right there. And it's like, you realize that's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Oh, for sure.
The more you tell your kid they're shy in front of people, the more you're giving them permission to not engage, to not step out, to not try new things, to not, like, you're protecting them. And you're giving them the excuse to never engage, to never step out of their comfort zone. Yeah. And we do this all the time. Oh, my kid doesn't like that. Like my kid, and it's ridiculous. Like, okay, oh, my kid doesn't eat that food. Well, have they ever tried it? No. They don't like that food. Yeah. No, like start at a young age. Like we're going to try things. Yeah. We're going to challenge ourselves. Because I don't know how we got on that tangent. But,
well, it's talking about intentionally putting ourselves in situations that are uncomfortable or that are unfamiliar, that are not, that stepping out of our little protective bubble. Yep. In order to feel that humility, and I think that's a great example of a very vulnerable age. You're talking about teenagers in social settings who might find themselves in their very protective groups. So what are their protective groups at school? It might be activities. That's where, the activities they're in, well, that's their friends, right? Yeah. So you go into like a youth group, and we've talked about this before. I mean, you're going to go to a youth group and see kids that you go to school with who are not your friends. Right. And that's okay. And that doesn't mean you have to become best friends because you go to a youth group. But it's also good to have youth group friends, good to have church friends.
And it's good to see people in different settings. Yes. And learn how to, because you know what, when you go to work, you don't get to pick your 10 best friends to work with. Yeah. So you have to learn how to find commonalities in people that you're different than. Yeah. You have to learn to appreciate people that are different than you. And that's
you have to learn to get along with. Yeah.
Different personalities.
Yeah, work with, live near. Yeah. All these things. These are life skills that we're guilty of it too. Yeah. And we protect our kids as much as we can,
and we protect ourselves
being disappointed or failing. Yeah. And ultimately, what we're doing is we're not equipping them to encounter those humbling circumstances that are inevitably going to happen.
And piggybacking off of that, to wrap this up, that's exactly what God does with temptation. He puts it out there, and we fail, and he goes, okay, now there's a lesson to be learned in that. Was that taking that or engaging in that or doing that, or was that worth it? Yeah. And you go, man, that wasn't worth it. Okay, so we learned our lesson. Like God humbles us that way. Like he allows Satan to tempt us. And it's either going to teach us that we're strong enough and we don't need that, and we're going to learn that lesson and go, yeah, God, you are better. Your way is better. Or we're going to fail and we're going to learn that lesson the hard way.
Yeah.
But God loves us enough to put us out there, to humble us, to show us, like, I don't need that. I am okay. I can do things God's way. Because we just had confirmation, and the two biggest things, God gives us the law for two reasons. One, because he loves us and he wants to protect us. And two, and this is probably the biggest one that people don't get, is God is after our joy. And it's all sin is fun for a season. That's why it's sin. That's why it's tempting. But in the end, it will bite you. It will hurt you. It will crush you. It will lead to death. And God goes, look, I want you to learn this lesson now. And so I'm not going to tempt you more than you can bear. I'm going to tempt you with little things now, to show you, no, I don't want that. So you don't make huge, catastrophic, life-changing decisions later.
Yeah, it's almost like creating those healthy habits incrementally, so that when there is that big thing,
right?
Those you've got those muscles built up.
And
it's hard.
To take it real personal,
really hard.
Or not personal. Take it real TMI. Just recently, I had a conversation with a parent of a teenage boy, and they're trying to figure out the conversation of masturbation, right? Like at school, they're being told, like, it's normal. It's, practice it. And, and they're actually talking about this in class, like how often kids should masturbate, what's allowed and what's not. And the parent's like, I feel so uncomfortable here, but like, I do feel like I should step into this and give some godly wisdom into this. Like, what do I tell my teenage son on this? What am I, and I said, what we have to understand is this: God has a beautiful picture in design for sex. I mean, God made it, and he made it pleasurable, and he made it good, and he made it amazing. And he designed it for a man and a woman, not for a person by themselves. I mean, literally what you're saying in masturbation is, I don't need anyone else. I'll have sex with myself.
Yeah.
And when you take the 30,000 foot view of it, that's literally what you're saying is, I'll just have sex with myself. I don't need anyone else. And it's kind of weird when you think about it. Like but it's so normalized today, and it's so rampant today of like, this is part of the human experiences, and I said, what you are teaching them is, in the Bible, like in Proverbs, like what we're reading right now, it talks about like, that it describes sex as like a well, like, only drink from your well, only, the wife, your marriage, like all those kind of things. And that's a good analogy, because what we need to be teaching young men is like, you might be thirsty, but you don't need to drink as much as you think you need to drink. Like, you're okay. And you can wait. You can experience it, because what happens is, when from 13 years on, we've told men that every time they feel a sexual urge, they should act on it.
Right? Yeah, give in to your desires.
Yeah, give in to your desires, and then like when simple like. Because there's obviously a catalyst for it, right?
Yeah.
You're looking at some type of pornography.
Yeah.
And when that doesn't satisfy anymore, then you got to step it up. Then you got to step it up. Then you got to step it up. And all of a sudden, at 22 years old, when he starts dating somebody to marriage, you have a fully, deeply engrossed, unhealthy pornography habit, with all these expectations and beliefs of what women do and what women want. And a man that has denied himself no type of self-restraint when it comes to this area. And then you put him into a marriage, and you know what? She doesn't want to have sex every single night. She doesn't want to be treated like a prostitute every night. She doesn't want to, but I've been trained my whole life, I need to go out and gratify whatever I want.
Right.
And then you can understand why these guys have affairs, why they have, not justifying it, but like why their sex life isn't satisfying, why their marriage isn't satisfying, why they're, it all goes back to this of like, we need to learn to self-control. We need to learn to deny ourselves.
Yeah.
And that's what God is trying to teach us in temptation at the very beginning. Like when your kid is, when your teenager, boy or girl is, 13, 14, 15, like start teaching them now. Hey, I don't care what outfit she's wearing. I don't care how popular or cute he is. Like, you know, like we're going to look for godly things about people. We're going to search for godly. We're going to deny ourselves these things. We're going to, like, God is laying out this temptation because he wants us to start to learn the process of self-denial.
Yeah.
Of going, I don't have to engage in that.
Right.
God doesn't want that for me. God is after my joy.
Yeah.
And if I do it God's way, even though the world says this is self-gratifying and I'm going to enjoy this, if I do it God's way, it's going to be way better.
Mm-hmm.
And we got to start teaching them that now. And we got to do that ourselves. And
Well,
that's why God allows us to be tempted,
sure.
so that we will learn that lesson. And when we fail, he is there to teach us, hey, that wasn't worth it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that is very profound advice, particularly for parents, that, you know, it's really hard to teach your kids about self-control and not building up idols when you don't have any self-control and you build up idols.
Right.
Just think about that for a second. If that's how you're living, what do you expect? How can you possibly expect your kids to act or behave or to do things differently?
Right.
So, yeah, it's challenging stuff. It's not easy. I mean,
And the good news is the very first part of that verse, you're not alone. I struggle with temptation. Aaron struggles with temptation. Everyone in our church struggles with temptation. Join a small group. Be at a Bible study. Come and talk to one of us. We are happy to sit down and be like, yeah, we will help. We will hold you accountable. We will encourage you. We will give you that opportunity. Because the way we fight back against it is with Jesus Christ. With his words, with his power, with his help, with his people. That's how we fight back against it.
Yeah, and I think that first step is really hard for people to say, yeah, okay, you're going to tell me that I gotta fill my life with Jesus. Okay, sure. How do you do that? Like, that first step might seem hard. It's really it's a lot. It's more available and accessible than you might ever think.
And God says he's after your joy. And I can tell you, I have not beat every temptation in my life, but I have beat some temptations in my life.
Yeah.
And there truly is joy at the end
for
of that.
sure.
To go like, I don't even have to chase after that anymore. I don't worry about that anymore. It's not a temptation for me anymore. Like, there is joy in that.
Yeah, there's peace and there's freedom in that as well. And just as you've preached about in the past, you know, when we've had very difficult circumstances in our lives, and God has helped us through it. And then you look back on those moments in your life, and they feel they feel significantly smaller than they were in that moment. It's the same thing with those temptations. It's the same exact thing. There are things that I was tempted with as a young man, or gave into as a young man, that it wouldn't even get like a quick glance from me anymore. Because God is good, and he's ever present, and he loves us. Amen. I love you, buddy.
Love you too. Have a great day, guys.